In this video, I'm going to show you how in just one report on TheBOS, I can find out everything in my business that makes up revenue. Let's get stuck in. So what we can see here is the mega report, and I've got the view set to basic. We're going to start from the top and work our way down a lot of these rows because all contribute to effectively the incoming revenue for the business. So in this, we can see detail, but we can also stay at the summary level. It really helps that we have the categorizations, which can break us down into all the detail we may possibly need. So having a look here, purely and simply, we've got the revenue functions. This comes through from every invoice generated on our practice management software and or financial software, depending on the setup. We can look at this information and break it down into all different categories that get set up on onboarding. So we can break it down revenue by location. We can break that down by further into profession, practitioner profession, or maybe we want to break that down into consultant class and then see what funding source is bringing in all the money from the consult perspective. So as you can see here, we can stay at the top view and just have a look at the trends in revenue across the business, or we can go all the way down into all the detail. So you just keep that in mind as I take you through all the different metrics or rows that we move through. These little numbers are indicating the amount of different categories that we can break each row into. So as we know, or if we don't, we should understand that revenue can be broken down into our billable hours multiplied by our revenue per hour. So billable hours is under our hours, obviously subheading, and we can see here that the billed hours across this time frame from December, January, and we can see that February is in the making, is decreasing slightly. So we might want to go back, click on these little arrows that open up some more months as we're in monthly view to kind of get a bit more of an understanding as to the trend that's occurring in the business. Obviously, we need to take in consideration that December and January have a fair few more public holidays, and you can see that up here in the notable dates row, which we can hover over for a greater explanation as to what the actual public holiday is for. Next, we need to consider how many working days are in the month. I mean, clearly, if a month has more working days, we could expect more billable hours. So we actually have a ability to kind of break that down or amortize that based on the amount of days in the month. And that can be seen in a metric in our advanced view, which is financial hours. That one's financial hours by client per day amortized across the month. There is another metric, however, up here, billable hours per work day. So this enables us to obviously compare month on month regardless of the amount of days that are in the month. So as this populates, we'll be able to see the trend that's occurring in the business. So from 86 to 87 and so on and so forth. I'm going to go back to the basic view because basic view covers most of the things that I'm interested when it comes to revenue. So we've looked at the billable hours here, and we're seeing a slight decrease. We can see that the the days in the month could have an effect. So the other side of the equation, obviously, is revenue per hour. So you can see here revenue per hour is going up, and we might want to dig a little deeper as to find out why that is. Is that across the whole business, or is it location specific, or what's happening there? So you can see here, location one is increasing literally almost month on month, with the anomaly being October. Same with location two, although it's kind of stabilized. We're not obviously looking at February here, sticking to the completed months. Big jumps or returning, obviously in location three, so on and so forth. We may go, all right, well, if it's not locations or locations is steadily increasing, is it consults or classes? So classes, you can see, has been relatively consistent with its little increase in January, whereas consults has certainly continued to rise. Now, we may want to look further into that and go, well, is it our funding source? Is there a particular funding source that may have got an increase in costing? So you can see that there may have been an increase in the DVA side of things. So that probably has more to do with the utilization, or maybe it's the service type or the profession type. So we might be seeing a lot more people coming through from a different, more highly or more expensive service. So you can see here that dietitian is on the downward trend, so we'd be wanting to have a look at that. EP is on the upward trend, but by far physio is our most expensive service. And what we may see is that the mix of business is moving more towards physiotherapy. So we can see that by obviously doing the same thing with revenue, looking at physiotherapy, and what we can actually see is it's coming down overall in terms of revenue. And we can look into why that is. Might be utilization rate, might be scheduled minutes, might be billable hours. We can obviously deep dive into all of those reasons. Coming down the line though, so we've looked at billable hours and revenue per hour. Revenue per hour has obviously got to do with the amount that you're charging, mix of business, or potentially you might have reduced your session times. Billable hours, however, can get broken down further. So we can look at billable hours equaling the unique clients multiplied by the financial hours per client. So I'm very conscious and careful of my use of language here. We're looking at financial hours. This will only become an important delineation between normal hours per client compared to hours, financial hours per client if your business is taking on classes. So if a class has 5 attendees in it, it will only count for 1 financial hour when doing the calculation. If we're looking at hours per client, that 1 hour class will be considered 5 hours or 1 hour for each client, because obviously what we're trying to delineate here is different. So one's financial and one's probably more clinical. So how much time are they spending exercising or with us in a group versus obviously how many hours are we spending from a cost perspective with a practitioner to deliver the time. So we got revenue per hour here. And then we can break that down, as I mentioned, into unique clients. Now, in this case, we can actually see unique clients declining, which is obviously a bad thing. And we'll go into trying to figure out why that is in a moment. But as mentioned, we can also look at financial hours per client, which in actual fact, we saw a little drop, obviously, when it comes to November. Rises back in December and did really well in January. So again, this is probably where we'd use an amortized across a month figure, where it divides the number by the number of days in the month. Now, practically, this doesn't mean anything. Like, we can't say that a client on average, like 0.086 hours in a day. Like, it's just practically doesn't make any sense. Whereas, when we look at it in this number, we can say that a client is going to spend at least 1.88 hours in general with us via a month. But when we're looking at trending, we want to probably look at the amortized number. So you can see here that we've seen a steady kind of growth occurring. Now, if ever we want to look at this from a graphical perspective, we can click on the graph and it will show us a quick graph that enables us to see more accurately or from a visual perspective what's going on. I am a bit of a data nerd, so I tend to stick down in the numbers. So moving back up to unique clients is a product of those clients entering the business versus those clients leaving the business, plus obviously those who are staying or continuing on with us. So as we can see here, we can see net addition clients, which is basically the difference between those leaving and those coming. So those leaving, we represent as client attrition. So these are people who were with us the month before, but not with us this month. And additional clients is a product, or it's a sum of brand new clients who haven't been with us for over 3 months, which we term new clients, and returning clients, which are those who have not been with us last month, are with us this month, and were with us probably more than a month ago. So within that 3-month window, altogether meaning additional clients here. So we can see here that we've been relatively, the additional clients has slightly dropped off. Now, we could create excuses for ourselves and say it could be the time of year being December and January. But ultimately, any excuse doesn't change the fact that we're seeing less additional come through. The other one to look at, obviously, is attrition. So attrition has jumped a little bit, obviously, in November and then stayed relatively consistent. And the argument here could be, well, the larger the number of people we see, obviously, probably the more that we're going to get better or the more that are going to leave. So a good way of looking at client attrition could be this percentage marker, which gives us a bit more of an indication as to our performance. So 23.3% is the amount of, on average, people leaving the business who were with us the month before. Jumped up to 25, so we can see that there's an attrition issue here, or something that we probably need to look at with our practitioners in terms of how they're treating the client. And we obviously need to get into the marketing and sales team to look at the additional clients trend to try and get that back up. The next step, obviously, from an additional client perspective, would be to look at how many leads we're getting in versus how many people we're kind of selling over the marker. So additional leads, you can see that they were huge in November, relatively strong in October, and certainly did die off dramatically in December, and is probably starting to look like it's beginning to recover in January. But we can see the marketing flow to our sales team has really dropped off. And as a result of that, we can see that the clients are basically not coming through. So that's a bit of an understanding of I guess, the business, and gives us a really good indication as to what potentially can be producing this revenue at the top. We can break the revenue as a recap down into billable hours that we've got here, multiplied by revenue per hour, which we have here, would obviously equal the revenue. The billable hours can get further broken down into unique clients, multiplied by financial hours per client, and that would give us a bit of an understanding as to the hours and where the hours are coming from then. Our unique clients can get that further breakdown, as mentioned, into additional clients minus attrition clients, plus the continuation of clients, or the clients that are continuing on in our care. And both the attrition and the additional create the makeup of this net additional. So you can see here that we've got some minuses, and that obviously is what's going to create this reduction or this dropping off of unique clients. So it gives us a pretty good understanding then of okay, well, additional clients is an issue, and we then looked at the leads being a drop off. So we're going straight to the source now of hitting up marketing to try to increase our leads. We're going to operations and saying, hey, clients are leaving us more frequently or not staying with us at the same amount of time because we can see the client attrition increasing. We need to get onto that. And our client care per month doesn't look too bad. But we want to make sure that people are staying for us, with us for long enough to get their results. That is a pretty good breakdown of how one report in TheBOS, called the Mega Report, is able to give us everything that leads up into revenue all in one spot, updated regularly.